Hello, everyone. Wanted to record this week's session on award-winning books. So if you'll look at the screen, you will notice that one of the videos I would normally play before class is the ALA Youth Media Award video. So if you're not someone who normally keeps up with that, I recommend you kind of put that on your calendar and see if you can keep up with which books win which awards. We will be talking about that tonight. We will start off with a little Kahoot quiz, and I'm going to have you be my guinea pigs. I'm going to do this in individual mode. So I'll give you the link to that in just a few moments, and it will also be in your Canvas course for you to kind of quiz your current knowledge on some classic children's literature. Then we'll also talk about what makes a good children's book, what makes a quality picture book. We talked a little bit about that in last week's class. I'm going to kind of go into a little more detail, define those a little bit more, and then we're going to talk for the majority of the class about award-winning requirements. And I have an interactive activity that I'm going to see if you'll do. We're going to try to flip that instruction, and then we'll review it the next time we come to class. And we'll touch lightly on some reputable book review sites and dive into some children's book terminology, as well as kind of what is a good core collection. And I would also suggest, since we're recording this week, that you might want to get together with your group to review what's going on with your group assignment. And we'll talk about that as well at the very end tonight when we review your assignments. So let's get started. One of the things I want to talk to you quickly about is a website that one of my students shared with me a few semesters ago. And this is a really neat site where students are recreating or retelling or summarizing a Newbery Award book in video format. One of my favorites is this Wrinkle in Time video. You've heard me talk about the Wrinkle in Time quite a bit. I will be sharing this on the Canvas page so that you can access it and get to it. Let's see if I can get that to open really quickly. And I will share just a moment of this one. It's a really great site. I suggest you check out for yourself, and you may want to do this activity with your students, whether it be in the public library and you're using an after-school program, or you're doing it with students in your classroom or your media assistants even, or small group or book club. But this is also a great way to kind of summarize these books for maybe a different audience to encourage and motivate them to want to try that. So let's take just a minute and watch A Wrinkle in Time.
I'm Meg. It's raining. I hate my life and I can't sleep.
Here's hot milk and a sandwich.
How did you know, Charles Wallace?
I'm a 5-year-old genius. That's spooky.
Mom, where's Dad?
He's on another planet.
I hear something outside.
He is on another planet.
Gravity is the soul of wit. Shakespeare.
It's time to descend!
But what is tetrad?
You see this string and this insect.
Okay, I get it.
Who's this guy?
I'm Calvin O'Keefe. I'm popular, but sensitive. And only I understand just how special you are, Meg. What was that?
The universe just ripped. That's bad.
Now we're on another planet. Look at that boy. It's scary. I'm just playing basketball. Whatever, robot.
Hello, I'm a giant brain.
Hi, Dad.
I'm not going to solve any of your problems.
You'll never get your brother back.
But what about the power of love?
I never thought of that.
Okay. From those of you who know anything about A Wrinkle in Time, was that 90-second summary pretty close? I think it's a really interesting and higher level way of students following up with and understanding these types of books. And Newbery books are one of our award winners that are definitely an example of quality literature. So we want to make sure that we encourage that and motivate students to want to read these. So this is one way that we can do that through this particular website and content. So I encourage you, if you have a group you can work with, and see if they can check out and send in their information to this 90secondnewberry.com. Okay, earlier I said that I would have us do kind of a warm up today to see what you know about children's literature. So in order to do this, normally we would do this together in class as a Kahoot quiz, but I'm going to have you be my guinea pigs this week. And I want to see if you can do this utilizing the play on your own time mode is what I'm going to call it from Kahoot. So it's really quite easy. All you will do is on our Canvas page today. Let's see if I can bring that up for you. You'll click on May 30th. And you'll notice the link to the 92nd Newbery is linked there at the top, but you'll also see Kahoot. And it is set up to where all you have to do is click. It will get started. You have until June 6th to do this. And you can log in. It'll give you a place to put your name. It'll let you put your nickname. So it'll jump you right in to get started. Okay? You'll say, okay, go. Oh, I put in the one I'd already put. You'll say go, and it'll go right into your quiz. So enjoy. Let me know what you're doing. I'll be able to check those on my own on the backside. And so we'll go over and see what you guys have done and how well you know your children's literature. Okay. So we'll be looking at everything from Dr. Seuss to the first Newbery to the first Caldecott book and everything in between. Another objective of this class is for us to talk about ways to motivate students to want to read, to motivate our younger patrons to want to pick up a book and read that book. So one of the sites that I would like to share with you is this Every Child Ready to Read. They have some really great calendar activities to promote reading with your children. One of those is the 10 benefits of reading aloud to children. That's good to share with parents, or create a fancier, I would think, infographic to share with them to help parents understand the purpose and the benefits of reading aloud to their children. So number one, obviously, it builds vocabulary. We've heard that our entire lives, I would imagine, but reading a book obviously builds that vocabulary in your child. It also improves reading comprehension when they can understand the content that they're reading, not just what they're listening to when others read to them, but when they're reading it themselves. It promotes empathy in what we see the characters working on, reduces stress. How many of you read a good book before you go to bed at night or work on a chapter? It boosts brain development, exposes children to different experiences, increases chances of later success. We note that students that read at least 10 minutes a day, their EOG and EOC grades are through the roof compared to those that do not. It helps develop communication skills, build self-esteem, and it deepens those family connections of just spending time together. So I would definitely encourage you to check out this Every Child Ready to Read at your library and connect the different activities that they have to share with your students and in your programs with your patrons. Another resource we want to suggest that you read, and again, these are all linked on the Canvas page today, is our SLMC Real World Edition Facebook group. On our Facebook group, we often post lists from Library Journal or about different topics. So maybe it's Asian American Month, and they've shared a really great list for your elementary or middle school students. or your after school programs, books that would be good to use in those, or your story times for youngers. But this is a really great resource that we hope you'll have a connection with. We're really trying to build a community where we can share all kinds of content and ideas. My Facebook looks busy because I've got a lot going on, a few pages I follow, but you'll notice here there's a really great program in Guilford County that has just happened, but it's a Show Up to Defend Books where they talk about book banning. You notice we have school library journal recommendations, and you'll see quite a few things coming through as far as lists go to support reading. So books by Asian and Asian American voices, as well as some things for graduation and celebrations for our students. So we would really love for you to join this. All you have to go is to the link and then click follow. And again, that's on the Canvas page today. Love for you to join us. A few other things I wanted to talk about today are our holidays to support reading and motivate children to want to read, to celebrate reading, really. And there are so many of these, we should really mark our calendar for many of them. So this is summer, and we're not going to see all of those dates populate right now, but it's good to mark your calendars for the future. So National Read a Book Day is September 6th. World Read Aloud Day is usually in February. Sometimes it's February 2nd. Some, depends on the day of the week there. But I always like to, on our Facebook page, say, what books are you reading on these holidays? So we can promote these holidays with everyone. They have the ability to register on their website, learn a little bit more about what goes on there. And you'll notice that there are so many. I didn't do a slide for every single one, but what I did do is on our Canvas page today, down here at the bottom, we have linked all of these. So you can quickly go in if you're interested in Banned Books Week, you can populate that and read a little bit more about when that will be. That will be in September. But you're welcome to check those out. Mark your calendar. School Library Month is usually in April. Of course, I've got slow Wi-Fi today. Here we come. But it will walk you through. It may even have slides or resources to support that. So everything from National Poetry Month, National Library Week, to Multicultural Children's Book Day in January, and lots of different holidays that book lovers should know about and promote to our students and promote to our patrons, our after-school programs, our homeschool groups. Sometimes all students need is an excuse to jump in and read a good book. So we want to encourage that. And these are good opportunities to do so. So I wanted to give you a few resources in tonight's class. Okay. So let's jump into a little more detail about our picture books, okay? Last week, we kind of gave a brief description of picture book as it related to an illustrated book and to a graphic novel. Remember, we said those were the three different kinds of formats of books that we had. Well, a picture book is also a story that's intended for our youngest readers. That 0 to 2, that 3 to 5, right? They actually are really intended for ages 7 and under in most cases when we have less words on a page. And then after 7, we're starting to encourage more chapter books. We're going to start to have those Geronimo Stilton books and a few others. But we want to make sure that students and children and our younger patrons know that picture books are usually full of all kinds of images to promote a connection with the community, honestly. And that's where they're learning their first instances of other cultures. And that's where they're learning how to read and how to count and what sounds animals make, right? Those early things that all students know and children learn with their parents. They're also, though, meant usually to be read to the youngest children that you're dealing with, not always to be read by children. Once you start to get in those step readers, those are those first picture books that are meant to be read by the children. They're meant for children who are not yet able to read in some cases, And these books help them develop a sense of storytelling, a sense of plot and language recognition. Picture books have illustrations usually on every page or every other page, depending on the layout, because looking at that art with the story helps comprehension and understanding that words have meaning. There are in many cases are also wordless picture books, and we're going to read one of those-ish this evening. The illustrations also help children contextualize text by giving those visual cues to the meanings of words on the page. In addition, a picture book illustrations strengthen a child's observation skills, as there's often more happening in the art than is necessarily stated in the text. If you remember that example I gave you last week with the rabbit and the bear that were in the lake, right? So it gives a little more information than they're used to or than they're accustomed to. I wanted to give us a little more detail to different types of picture books. Let's kind of just describe them a little bit. First off, we have nonfiction picture books. Nonfiction picture books are books that are based on fact, potentially real people or real events. For picture books, a nonfiction title is often based on one of three things: either a historical event, a biography of an important person, or an examination of a natural world or the natural world. And what I mean by that is maybe it's about a particular animal or group of animals, or maybe it looks at a particular habitat, right? That's what we would define as a nonfiction picture book. And this is an example, The Man Who Built the Library here, right? That's kind of a biography in picture book form. There's quite a few of those out. The next piece I want to talk to you about are concept picture books. These concept picture books, these are ones that teach early concepts and are one of the most popular picture book themes. We see this a lot of new books every year published about different concepts. And they're used usually with those youngest of readers as a teaching tool. Among the most popular concept picture book themes are definitely alphabet books, books about colors, numbers, shapes, those things we want to teach our earliest readers. Sometimes concept books simply list the concept being shown, and other times they are worked around a story. For example, you see here on the screen, we've got Chicka Chicka Boom Boom by Bill Martin. You can see the illustration there. Chicka Chicka Boom Boom introduces the letters through a story about the letters actually climbing a coconut tree. So it's not just here's the letter, here's the sound it makes, right? But it kind of has a storyline behind it. So that's an example of a concept picture book. The next kind of book in the picture book definition are poetry picture books. And with poetry picture books, I've got an example here, just like me, you see on the screen. These are picture books that can be full stories written in rhyme, which we're going to talk about in a few weeks. We have a whole week we're going to dedicate to poetry. But they can also be a collection of poems by a single author on a single theme. A collection of poems by that single author or on an unidentified theme, or a collection of poems by several authors. And we're going to define that in much more detail in a few weeks. Just Like Me is a great example of one of these books. You can see a different poem on each page. Another one of mine is Take Me Out to, the title just left me, but it takes different songs and puts a different spin on them. One's like school related, and it's got the Take Me Out to the Ball Game tune that you put to different words. Kind of interesting. Kids really connect with it. The last kind of picture book we want to talk about, and probably the most popular, you'll see the most of them, are fiction picture books. Fiction means they're making up a story, right? You see my example here, if you give a mouse a cookie. This is the most common kind of picture book. And when it comes to what it can be about, the sky is the limit. Children of this age are still looking and learning about the world. So picture books, no matter how serious or how funny or whimsical, tend to present situations and characters that young children can understand and relate to. This is why many times the subject is a farm or a bedtime or friendship, and ABCs are always popular, right? It's one of the first things we teach students or children are the sounds animals make. So this is why that subject matter is something popular to write about, because kids can relate to it. They've been doing that and making those things in conversation with their families for a while now. So these are kind of the 4 different areas of just picture books, okay? Now, let's kind of define what makes a good picture book. There's quite a few things here. We can all recall our favorite book that we had as kids. Think about that for just a minute. Can you remember your favorite book as a kid? My children all have them. And my youngest daughter, who's now a senior in high school, drew a picture of them. If you were in my office, you could see I've got all of my children's and my daughter-in-law's favorite book cover illustrated by my daughter there. And so they all have a favorite that they can remember. Think about what your favorite is. If we were in class together, I'd have you share that out. But those are the books that kids want to hear over and over again. Thousands of children's books are published each year, and these stories, which are they set the stage for a lifetime of reading. And they're often very simple. My son is 27 now, and when my daughter-in-law and him told me they were expecting, I went right to the cupboard and pulled out my son's favorite book when he was a little boy and made sure that they had that to share it, because that's something that, you know, I never had gotten rid of. That was one of the favorites that they had. But publishers say that this doesn't mean that these books are easy to write. A good picture book tells a compelling story in 32 pages. Now, 32 pages could be partially text, partially images, a mixture of both, or maybe all images, right? And the fewer words that you have, sometimes the easier it is to understand. A good picture book tells that compelling story, remember? And it also targets a specific demographic or age group. Remember what we talked about last week and what kinds of books are appropriate for each age level and how they're written to meet their needs. The first thing you have to think about when writing a good children's book is, does it have strong characters who evoke emotion? Good children's books, no matter how simple or complex, often offer a sense of joy or accomplishment. They can make us laugh, they can make us cry by giving us a character that we want to care about, can't they? That's what a good picture book should do. Secondly, a good picture book is a story that teaches. Good stories can teach simple concepts about numbers, letters, or colors, or they can teach about diversity, love, manners, acceptance. But they usually have some kind of concept that they're teaching. And 3, there's this mind-expanding illustrations, those vocabulary or concepts that it's trying to teach. Great children's books can tell just as much of a story through the artwork and offer an author the opportunity to expand young minds through interesting poetic language, fun alliteration, advanced vocabulary. All of those things can come together. So we could have a conversation and think about, we can have books that have only words, right? I think about our examples that we gave you last week. If you're looking at Wonder, it's a book that's full of words, no images. We can have those illustrated books that are full of words and have a few pictures spattered throughout the book, just to kind of check for understanding or support the text, but really they're not necessarily necessary. Then we kind of went down to our picture books that have both images and words, where we're using these kinds of books to really support the text. The images support the text to help children in the decoding process so that they can read through and understand the words that they're trying to decode and use the picture clues to help them. And then, just like we could have in Wonder, we had a book full of words and no images, we can have a book full of images and no words. And all of these different books have a place. So I want to give you an example tonight, and I want you to kind of do a little T-chart or a little checklist on your notes that you're taking to the side. And I want you to kind of think through this book, and I want you to tell me when we're finished if it qualifies as a good children's book. Does it have strong characters who evoke emotion? Does the story teach something? Does it have illustrations or vocabulary or concepts that are elevated, right? So as we listen to this book today, and I'll give you a clue, it is a wordless picture book. I want you to kind of think through the characteristics that this book has. Even though it doesn't have words, can it still be classified as a quality children's book? And so to do this, I've chosen tonight to do a YouTube video of this particular book. I actually have two. One kind of has sound effects, but the other one just has some music behind it. So I want us to kind of watch this book, and I'll be kind of stopping and starting to discuss different things that are going in it, just to give you a heads up.
Who's ready to hatch some cool pets?
Okay.
Click here to
I had it all prepped. Here we go. So what did we see? We saw a family. They have a dog. It looks like they're getting ready to go somewhere. The dog is outside. He seems to be barking. The little girl is leaving. I think she's going to school, right? Just kind of interpreting the images we see. Well, off in the distance, there seemed to be a pack of wolves. And so all of this was before the title page, which is Wolf in the Snow. Looks like the little girl is leaving her home or her school, and she's headed back home. What's happening? It's starting to snow, right? The wolves, on the other hand, they're cold as well, and they're headed the other direction. Did you notice something that we saw in the background? Let's see, let me get it back here. What do you see there in the background? We also see not just the little girl walking, but we also see a small pup. So the pup is also walking that way. Wonder if that's an important fact. The snow seems to be getting heavier. But she's still plowing along, trying to get home. The wolf, the pack of wolves, is also traveling the other direction, even though the snow is so heavy. And the pup kind of gets left behind. So now the little girl's by herself and the pup is by himself. So we see some words there, huff, huff. We also see she's kind of sweating there. So she's working hard to get there, and she's breathing heavy. The little pup is the same way. He's like, oh my goodness, I'm so hot, right? He's nervous, crying a little bit, whining. So the little girl finds the little pup, and I see so much emotion in her eyes Little pup is a little scared, but do you think she's going to help? So the snow's gotten deep. So right here, what's happening? The little girl hears the pup's family calling in the distance, and she wants to help. What is this teaching already? You think it's teaching some empathy? So she takes off toward the wolf pack, trying to get the little wolf to its parents. Seems very dangerous, doesn't it? What do you notice here? Is this an easy route for her to get and help get the pup to its home, or is she having to go through some struggles? Crossing a creek, she looks a little scared from her facial expression. Fighting off some angry, looks like raccoons. Scary place. She's scared that she hears the owl. Can you tell what kind of emotion she has just in her eyes there? And how do we know that she's getting closer to the wolf pack? We know she's getting closer because those howling words are getting larger, aren't they? All of a sudden, she stops. Who's coming toward her? Now, how does she feel at this point? Can we look at her eyes and see how she feels? I don't know about you, but if I saw a pack of wolves coming at me, I would be a little nervous. I think we can tell that from her expression too. But what's she gonna do? Kind of looking at each other. Looks like she lets the little pup down. The pup goes over. They kind of have a conversation, don't they? She's like, whew, that's over. Now I've got to get home. So she takes off. But imagine the snow is really deep now. Do you think her parents are nervous? Look how far away that bark is really small, how far away her family is. She's getting tired. And I'm sure she's cold. And the wolves are coming toward her. She's kind of laid down. She just can't go any farther. So who comes to her rescue? The little pup says, she saved me. Let me see if I can help save her. And all the wolves are kind of howling, although that would be scary to me. The dog's barking, and look who shows up. It's either mom or dad. We don't know who, right? Can we tell how they feel just by looking at their expression here on their eyes? You can see a little bit of a smile. They're happy, aren't they? They're very happy they've been able to find each other, and dad's going to carry her home. There's mom waiting in the yard, cannot wait for her to come in. And then they kind of celebrate together. What do you think this book is teaching? If we were all together in class, we would have a little discussion here, but what do you think this book is teaching? Do you think it qualifies as a good children's book? Does it have characters who are evoking strong emotion? I don't know about you, but I really care about this little girl, and if she's going to get the pup home, and if she's going to be able to be home, and everybody's going to be safe. So it has me excited and can't wait to turn the page and see what's going to happen next. Does this story teach something? What do you think it teaches? Does it teach empathy? Does it teach that kind of concept of caring about others? And how do the illustrations do? Do the illustrations really lead us to understand the emotion of the character just in, her facial expressions? We couldn't see much but her eyes, but we were able to see all of that really quickly, weren't we? I really enjoy books like this when I can kind of walk through the images and tell the story myself. That is one of the characteristics to help build a strong reader and a strong writer. They're using their imaginations to kind of drive the story. Think about the times that you've done that. If you're working with an after-school program in a public library, maybe you're working with a homeschool group that comes into your space, or a story time with the youngers. If you're in a school library and you're working with those little small children, they can tell the story just by looking at the pictures. I also use wordless picture books with some of my older children and say, okay, I want you to write me a story to work on their writing skills, utilizing the images that you see happening in this particular book. There are all kinds of really great wordless picture books. I encourage you to check those out. Another thing I like to do when, and this is a good example of the resources that I ask all of you to do in your literature log and in a lot of our work.
A lot of times
but I want us to look now at a video, and this is the illustrator, I guess the author illustrator, Matthew Cordell, I believe is his name. And he's going to give you a hint about this particular picture book that I would imagine you don't know. It's not something I knew until I watched this, but he's going to give us kind of the history and idea of what drove him to write this book and a little secret that's kind of going on in the background. Okay, so let's watch this. It's not but about 2 minutes.
A lot of times on newer picture books, illustrators like to play around with the idea of having a different drawing or a different design on the jacket of the book than they have on the printed hardcover of the book, which is called a case cover. So I was thinking about, this was a special book to me, so I knew I wanted to do something unique and special for the case cover. So I was trying to figure out what was that going to be. So in other words, this is the outer paper of the book, is the book jacket. So if you take off the jacket of this book, on this jacket you have, the girl and the wolf pup on this side of the jacket, and then one of the adult wolves back here. So it's, in a way, it's sort of a continuous piece if you look at it like this. So this is also the case cover is what I ended up doing was, so I wanted to tell a little bit of extra story on each piece. So this is a little bit of extra story about the girl and her family and sort of the bond that they have, the bonds that they have together. And on this side of the case cover are the wolves, different scenes showing the wolves bonding amongst the pack of wolves. So I just felt like it would have been a fun place to show, because there's not a lot of scenes where you see the family together, or you see the girl interacting with her dog, or you see the wolves and the wolf pup together. So I wanted to show a little bit. It could be before the story, it could be after the story, but there's one panel right here where the girl is looking out and she sees a wolf howling in the distance. And right here, the wolf mother and pup are looking out and they see some smoke coming from the chimney of the house. So they're sort of aware of each other in the context of where they live and nature, and that there are other beings out there around them.
So did you know that was there on the case cover of the book? I don't know about you, but I had absolutely no idea. I also did not know that this is a trend, that you're going to actually see quite a few books that do this. The Lighthouse is a new book, not new now, probably 2 years ago. It was a Caldecott Award winner. It does the same thing. So when you get a permabound book or a Follett bound book in your library, those glued books, they kind of come without these little covers. And underneath those, we kind of lose that whole concept. So sometimes I always like to make sure I get the publisher edition and cover the book itself so that I can get all the experience that the author and the illustrators intended for us to have. But overall, after listening to our illustrator, our author, and hearing that book, do you feel like Wolf in the Snow is a quality children's book? Is a good children's book? That might be why you notice that it has an award. This was a Caldecott Award. That is always a good place to start. Now, not every good book has an award, but most of the books that have awards can definitely fit this criteria. I want to take a few moments and have us look very quickly at some terminology surrounding picture books, okay? Let me see. Now look, I didn't have my video on the whole time. Let's see if we can fix that out. I'm sorry. I do want to talk to you about the cover of the book, right? Pretty easy. We have several books here and they have covers. I've got Once Upon a Cool Motorcycle Dude. I've got Planting Stories. I really like to use this one because it's the life of a librarian. And storyteller. Pura Belpré is actually an award to celebrate Latinx or Puerto Rican authors and illustrators and stories. So we'll be spending a little more time just talking about Pura Belpré independently. So that's the cover of your book. Now, the cover is that outside component. You heard him talk about the end papers and you heard him talk about the dust jacket. So if I take the dust jacket off of this Planting Stories book, do you notice the cover of this book? The cover of it doesn't have the title. So you definitely need this book to have its dust jacket to tell us what's there, right? Much more interesting for your children and your student readers. The other thing the dust jacket will do is it will have kind of a summary of the story on the inside flap. It will give the age level that it's appropriate for up in the corner. This one says ages 4 to 8. And then at the very back of the dust jacket, many times we will meet the author, we will meet the illustrator, and we'll get a little more content. Now, sometimes authors and illustrators don't do anything special with the cover, the dust jacket. This one of my favorites, Once Upon a Cool Motorcycle Dude, which is great for teaching point of view because the illustrations change by illustrator for each point of view that's talked about, but they have the same cover on the inside. What do we miss when we don't have the dust jacket? We miss the summary and we miss more information about the illustrator and author. So sometimes that's put on the back of the book, but for the most part, if they have a dust jacket, we're going to miss that. Another story that you heard me talk about earlier last week, actually, is the Breaking News. And that book talks about, let's look at its end papers. End papers are the papers stuck to the cover, but they sometimes give us an indication of what the story might be about. Some publishers and illustrators and authors start really early as soon as you open that end paper. So you notice the students in this particular picture look worried and concerned, but at the end of the story, they look happy. So it's kind of an indicator of kind of what this book is going to be about. But those end papers are the parts that are inside, right? Inside that piece. Another thing we need to think about when we think about children's book terminology is layout and design. Books can be laid out in a variety of different ways. We talked last week about graphic novels, right? That's a layout or a design. Remember, it's not a genre, it's just a different format of book. And then others, this particular book is an interesting book because it's written all in text messages, which is not something I would be interested in, but you're going to have some people, some children who really think that's pretty cool. So those different designs and layouts are really there to interest a different audience. They're trying to connect with that different audience. So when we think about that layout and design, if we look on the images that you have here on the screen, you notice that we have designs that include little Post-its. This is an origami, how to fold paper in origami animals here. So it's a good one to show a different layout or design. I also think about something you probably all remember is our Magic Treehouse books, Magic School Bus books that have little Post-its on the side that would give nonfiction content while the storyline was going on in the middle. These Magic School Bus books were a good connection between the nonfiction and the fiction storyline working simultaneously. The next thing on our list is back matter, those notes or glossary and index. That's all of the stuff at the end of a book. This particular book is pretty neat. It actually gives suggestions of other titles. It shows the illustrator's thought process and storyboards for how they put the book together. And it has kind of a glossary of hobo signs that it used, right? This is a book about that. And so it has a unique kind of back matter that suggests that. So it doesn't have to just be notes, doesn't have to just be a glossary or an index. It can be all of those. Sometimes we can also have an inset text box. That's an example here. Children who are reluctant readers love nonfiction books that have these inset text boxes because they don't have to read. They don't get overwhelmed by all the words in the book. They can actually take and read pieces and parts of it at a time. Let me see if I can change that over. And so they're not overwhelmed by just the content. Another thing that you'll notice, and I have an example in the bottom corner, is the ISBN. And so I thought it would be interesting to understand kind of what the different sections of that ISBN kind of mean, just to be informed. And so it tells us the whole ISBN number you see here. It's at the top of the barcode on the very back of most books. Now, if you have a permabound book, sometimes you won't have the ISBN published. If you have a Follett glued book, right? Those that are kind of paperbacks that have a card cover put on them, they won't have that. The next little group of numbers after the dash is an identifier for the country or the language group. The next grouping of numbers is a publisher identifier. The next grouping of numbers is an ID. This is the title, the edition, the format, some number there. There's a check digit and then a barcode kind of price. And then we'll talk about that a little bit later. But that kind of helps you understand what that barcode number is, or that, I'm sorry, ISBN number. We all know what copyright means, and you can also find the copyright of each one of the books. It could be in the back matter of a book in some of them. I'm thinking of John J. Muth's Stone Soup. It's actually at the back instead of the front. And many other times that's on the front, in the front of the book. First 1 or 2 pages you can see there. Now, how many of you know what an ARC or galley is? ARC actually stands for Advanced Reading Copy. Many publishers, if you go to different conferences, will hand these out to get feedback. They have not gone through their final editing stages, so you may find problems with them. Do not suggest that you put them in your collection, but they're good for giveaways sometimes. And a galley is actually where they printed all the pages together. I'm thinking of picture books. They may trim the edges and just staple the end of the book. It's just the rough copy. It's what they do prior to printing. Okay. Now, we've talked a whole lot about easy readers. Easy readers, good examples of them. They have lots of white space. The text is a lot larger, right? We talked about step readers last week when we were here, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that again. Another children's book terminology is chapter books. We talked about early chapter books, such as Geronimo Stilton. Remember, I said that he has really great text within his books that draws in the reader and engages the reader at a higher level. So it kind of keeps that reluctant reader a little more engaged because it has lots going on. We've also briefly touched on the difference between informational books or nonfiction books versus fiction when we described picture books earlier today. We talked about it might be historic or biography, or potentially it could also include, on that informational book content, could also include animals, habitats, science, planets, right? We're learning information, we're learning content to connect. Stereotypically, your boys in your groups, either after school programs or classrooms, are going to gravitate to that informational book or nonfiction information. Not always. We got some girls that like that too, but stereotypically, that's one of those. We also spent last week really diving into graphic novels and understanding what they are and how they're designed. And I also want to share with you, we talked that picture books and graphic novels are not a genre, but they're a book format. So I wanted to share a few things with you. And again, these will be on our Canvas page. But one is the genre wheel. Sometimes it's nice to give children a way of kind of tracking what kind of books that they're reading. Maybe if they really like adventure survival books and that's all they're reading, they need to branch out and try something different. So this is one of those things they can kind of color to help keep track of that. Another really fun thing to do with the students when teaching them genre is genre bingo. And genre bingo, you can actually put the genres you want on there. You can put a theme that you want to have. There's classic. You'll notice it changes there as I change it. Historic. Can change the size here too. Oh, let's see. What's modern? There's your modern one. I can go in, I can change the size, the free space. I can take out all of these and change them around to the different genres I want to be on there. And then you can actually go and you can print how many different cards that you want. You get 30 for free. And then the others, they'll start to cost you, but they actually mix them all up for you. You don't have to do that. So it's just a great way to reinforce different genres and help children understand that, especially your sixth graders. So that's the top of our age bracket in this class that we're connecting with, those 12-year-olds, 12 and under. We really study mysteries and understanding what a mystery is and what it's composed of, right? So they can not only read them, but also write them. Another children's book terminology to talk about is a trade book. Many of your textbook adoptions, if you've been through one of those ever, not many schools are doing those a lot, costs quite a bit of money. But one of the selling points to a quality trade book is to make sure that it's full, textbook is to make sure that it's full or has access to lots of different trade books. A trade book is a book that is published, right? It is a storybook from beginning to end, not just a section, not just a passage, but an entire book that connects with all of the pieces that we've talked about tonight. And then that font and interface type is this example that I've got with Geronimo Stilton here. Most of the time we have just general text, and some publishers and authors have these fancy text or fonts or typefaces throughout to just engage their learner at a little higher level. All right. Now, normally what I like to do at this point is I don't do a lot of talking about these different awards. And I'm not going to do this any different tonight, even though it's just a recording or a recording of class. I'm still going to have you do the investigative part. So I want to talk about some of these different awards briefly. I am just going to skirt the top, but I'm going to give you the resources to dive in a little deeper and learn a little bit more about them. So if we start out with the Newbery here. Newbery books, how many have heard of them? Anybody? The Newbery Award is awarded annually by the ALA, the American Library Association, for the most distinguished American children's book published in the previous year. And so there will be lots of different books that are reviewed by the committee, and they will choose honor books as well as the winner. On June 22nd, 1921, Frederick Melcher proposed the award to the American Library Association meeting of children's librarians. And that's when they started that and named it after Mr. Newbery here. They use, what I want to share with you is actually, a really great link where you can review, let me bring it up here, all of the Newberys from the past. So I'm going to share this link on your Canvas page and have you look up the Newbery, but I also think it's fun to go down and see, let's see if I can find it real quick. Let's see, where is it? Hold on. How it came to be. We can learn about the history. If you want to submit a title, terms and criteria, so you can read all about it. I'm going to let you do that in just a few minutes, but it has a really great list. Let me see if I can find that really quickly. Oh, here it is. Here it is. I'm sorry. Complete list of Newbery medal and honor books, right? So I'm going to go to this PDF, and I really think it's fun to go in and see what book won the Newbery the year you were born. So again, from that link I've sent to you, there's a download a complete list. They kind of changed it. It used to be just a link on the side. You saw me looking for that. But now you can download a list. So I'm about to give you guys my age. I was born in 1971. So the year that I was born, it was Summer of the Swans by Betsy Byers was the winner, and it had 3 honor books. So I challenge you to do something. I want you to check out what book won the award the year you were born, and just kind of ask yourself, have I read that book? Is that something I might be interested in reading? Because something you'll notice is just because a book, a Newbery in particular, was written a long time ago, doesn't mean it isn't still a good book that children can relate to. Newbery books in particular, one of their criteria is it timeless? Is it something that can be read and connect with students of all ages? So if you think about it, there is Sounder on here. There is Hatchet, right? There are quite a few other titles that I can think of. Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry, Ramona and Her Father by Beverly Cleary. There are quite a few books on here. Dr. DeSoto, Because of Winn-Dixie. Lots of books that are kind of timeless. So take some time and check that out and see if you've read that latest Newbery. So Newberys are awarded to books that have that timeless criteria, and they can connect with the reader at different ages, right? They might be a different time in history, but they still connect with that reader. And you'll notice the 2022 winner I have up here on the screen as well, the last Quintista. And then there's also Shiloh. I can think of so many books that are just timeless there, as well as, since I've been talking about A Wrinkle in Time today, it's another one that they did that 90-second piece on. Okay, the next award that we can't go without talking about is the Caldecott Award. The Newbery Award that we just talked about on the last slide was all about content and literary value, right? It is a story, it is a novel, and it is continuous. The Caldecott, on the other hand, is awarding illustrations. So it's looking for those quality illustrations to support the text, if it has text, right? Do you notice that on the front of this, our 2018 winner was Wolf in the Snow that I highlighted earlier. 2019 was Hello Lighthouse, and the Hello Lighthouse book does the same thing as far as if you take off the dust jacket, you can kind of see the extended story on the outside. So I guarantee you, all of you are going to go out and check out your copy of Hello Lighthouse and see if you can see kind of what's under your dust jacket there. 2020, Kwame Alexander and Kadir Nelson. Absolutely love Kadir Nelson. He's my favorite illustrator. Kwame Alexander, he wrote, anybody know? The Crossover, that's right. All of those books have won multiple awards, not only the Caldecott. This one was nominated for the Newbery and also the Coretta Scott King. We're going to talk about that one in a moment. This year's winner is Watercress, and it's about the experiences of a little girl, and it's actually kind of real time, but it's a little interesting. I think you should check that one out if you haven't. Again, one of my favorite illustrators is Kadir Nelson. We're going to see quite a bit about him, but he illustrated Moses. And this book is by one of our North Carolina natives, Carol Boston Weatherford, and she wrote Moses. Now, Moses is a Coretta Scott King Book Award. Anybody know who Coretta Scott King is? She is Martin Luther King's wife, and they've named this award after her. And it is very unique in the types of books that it supports, and it references and recommends is the word I'm looking for. So I encourage you, when I give you your activity here in a few moments, to check out the Coretta Scott King Book Award as well, making sure that you understand where these books come from, why they have been given this award, and what they are celebrating. Because especially if you are in the 077 track for school library media, part of your praxis is going to be to understand book awards and what they are referencing and what they're recommending. Okay, so you know that the Coretta Scott King Book Award is referencing and recommending books by authors and about students and adults of color, right? There are so many book awards. And I usually, if we're all here together, we would take and look at this in one group. But just to share it with you, again, this link will be on the Canvas page. But you'll notice that these books are all supported and promoted on our ALA website. So there is the Alex Award that's the focuses, it says 10 books written for adults that have special appeal to young adults ages 12 through 18. But we have YALSA awards. You'll notice here's the Coretta Scott King. If you click on the name, it will give you more information about when it was established, how it was established, who it's named after, and who the books honor, right? It's not just, in this case, it's not just a book by an author of color. It's a combination of things. So it's definitely worth taking your time to look at these. There are also book awards that celebrate all kinds of things that I bet you're unaware of. So it's not just the Pura Belpré Award, the Newbery, and the Caldecott, but there are books that celebrate the LGBTQ and they honor books that are about that content. There are others that are about Native Americans or American Indian Youth Literature Award, Asian Pacific Award. Think about the students and the children and the patrons that you're serving and those communities and what books you have to support them so they can see themselves in the books that they're reading. Many times we don't even know what we don't have. We don't know the most current literature for that particular population. So by looking at these particular awards, we can get a start. Okay, so that's one reason that they're so important. But I could just keep going. So many different awards here. There's a Theodore Geisel Award. Yes, that is Dr. Seuss, where we might want to learn about some of those early readers, step readers. It will talk about those. Another thing to talk about are our state book awards. The thing I love about the state book awards is those are usually voted on by students and awarded to the authors. And it's the children's award is chosen by children. It's not chosen by adults. And they have picture books and they have junior books to support that. Many different states have them. South Carolina, Texas, the Blue Bonnet Award is, I think, Texas. North Carolina Children's Book Award is in North Carolina. We're going to look at some examples of that in just a little while when we look at your assignment. So we need to look at that. Now, I'm not sure if this has started again since COVID, but I did want to point this out, that many of our book awards, all the publishers send books to the committee to read. So instead of the committee just kind of handing those out willy-nilly, they look and give you the opportunity to apply for and have that collection sent to your library. These would be all the books that they've looked at, which could be hundreds, right? So on this Bookapalooza program, it still says that due to COVID-19, they did not offer them in 2021, but I'm sure it's going to update for 2022. But it gives you the application, what you must demonstrate, the criteria, the requirements. So if you haven't checked out that, definitely something I suggest. Now, because we're recording this week, you're going to be doing our class activity, and you're going to be doing that individually. So this will be linked again on the Canvas page. And I have this Padlet set up with several of the different awards. You'll see the Newbery, the Caldecott, the Coretta Scott, Pura Belpré, Theodore Geisel, North Carolina Children's Book, the Stonewall Book Award. Now, normally I would have you working in groups to review these, but for these purposes, I want you to kind of look at some of the criteria, and I want you to kind of skim a few of these, at least 3, okay? Normally we would have each group do one, and then we would share out to the whole group. You're not going to be able to do that in class. So we're going to ask you to review at least 3 of these and kind of think about why this award is important, who does it honor and why, when was its first year that it was given, maybe what is its criteria. I think that's very important to understand. Why are we honoring this kind of book with this kind of award? And maybe an interesting fact that's there, and maybe 2 or 3 titles for yourself, right, that you may recognize that have won that particular award. All right, so you can just click below that. If you click at the very next piece underneath the instructions, that's where it takes you to that list of all the different awards so that you'll have those all in one spot. Those are Book and Media Awards. The second one is the first link I sent you to that has everything listed. And then those are your 3 links there under the instructions. So again, you will need to do at least 3 different awards in your individual review, okay? You don't have to give me a lot. It can be just bullet points. I just want to make sure that you have researched and understand Newbery, Caldecott. Maybe you chose the Pura Belpré Award or the Coretta Scott King and the Theodore Geisel. You choose the 3 you want to do, and I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll also Let's see if I can pull over here. I'll add a section and I'll say other. So if you have an award that you would like to review that's not listed up here, feel free to do so, okay? You can just add it right here below. Want to personalize that instruction, let you have lots of information that you can choose, and then share that out with your neighbors. One of the resources that we're going to unpack in week 5 this summer is this list of book review resources for librarians. So I've actually put together a s'more, you know, just like you guys, I like them. Really great, easy way to put things together. And I have all of these review sources. So if you push Control and you click on them, you'll notice it populates in a new tab up here at the top. But these are lots of different resources to support us finding books about different cultures, where the book awards do that. Like if I were interested in the American Indians and children's literature, that's a great place to go. But there's quite a few others that are here as well. And you'll notice that the book award lists kind of have a section all to themselves as well. So we will be talking about that in week 5, how to use a good book review source when you are using and selecting books for your collection. So the last thing I kind of want to cover tonight are these trends in picture books. So number 1, parents and children are interested in finding books that are those windows and doors to other cultures. They're looking for diversity. Another thing they're interested in is that strong female characters. You know, one of the books that we shared tonight was Ava Twist's Scientist. That's a really great picture book series where it has strong female characters that are working hard and being successful at enabling text. Another very popular book right now for our youngers are kid-friendly nonfiction. Now, I've shown you quite a few tonight with our step readers or last week that talked about sharks and race cars, right? Those are books that you don't have to read from beginning to end. You might can just turn to page 52 and read about how to feed that pet. You don't need all the history. So that's one appealing factor to those reluctant readers. Poetry are books that parents and children are looking for. And those iconic series books, you heard me talk earlier about Pete the Cat, right? I can also name Fancy Nancy. I could also name Dr. Seuss. Those are the characters that kids want to read about and they want to grow with and see how they react in different situations. Also, fantasy worlds and creatures. Listening to your flip grids earlier, many of you are interested in books like Harry Potter, right? Well, that's definitely one of those fantasy worlds and included all kinds of creatures. And we can all agree that kids love scary books, whether it's your after school program, your homeschool group, your students in your classroom, they love the scary stories. They may have a hard time finding them in your catalog because they can't search scary stories. So put together a collection, they can find them pretty easy, but they come at all levels and are very interesting. All right. Oops. So we covered all kinds of information tonight. Sorry, I had to record that for you, but wanted to make sure that we covered just the value and understanding of award-winning books as you're putting together your next literature immersion assignment, which will be due next week. Wanted to give you some examples. So please, number 1, do your Padlet from tonight so that you can have some experience about different kinds of awards. You don't have to choose the Newbery unless you just really have an audience that would really appreciate it. This assignment is meant to promote award-winning books. And the reason we do that is that's a step to start children on a quality, on looking for and finding a quality or finding quality literature. So I want to give you some examples of things people have done in the past that I think would maybe help you get out of your comfort zone and try something different. The first thing I'll start with is something you might feel comfortable with after your picture book soak, and that is a s'more. Now, this particular assignment, there's a few components I want you to do. So number one, share any relevant information. Make sure that you're putting the title of the award. This is the North Carolina Children's Book Award. Make sure you're giving me a little bit of history or what they need to do. So here I have the timeline for when they need to vote for their books. And I've kind of given you a description. You notice it's just a sentence or two, but they know what that book is. The next thing is I have a few resources. So click here to access their website. They even put together an activity book to support it. So those are links that I've just added in. The next thing that they've done is they have gone through and I've given them a quick brief summary, just like what I'm asking you to do for your literature log, but they have the picture of the book. I have a quick 2-bullet connection, and I have quite a few resources to support it. There's downloadable activities for Ada Twist. There is a makerspace activity. There's kind of an activity to talk about what an engineer is, and there's even a book trailer to support it. So all of these will help build prior knowledge and support this particular title. Same thing with Lion Lessons by John Agee. The one thing I think is really neat about this particular title, as well as Bear in the Piano, is they have a bear camera down here where you can watch the bears in their live habitat. Another one is at the San Diego Zoo of the lions, where you can watch the lions in that habitat. So a resource can be an author interview or illustrator interview, such as we saw earlier today about the wolf story, Wolf in the Snow. Can't remember off the top of my head. It's kind of late. The other thing it could include are lesson plans or activities, makerspace ideas, the cams that connect with that particular habitat for those animals, book trailers. So all of these things are good support for these particular titles. So a s'more is a way of doing this particular assignment. All of those titles were ones that were recommended as a North Carolina Children's Book Award a few years ago. Next, I'd like to show you a unique take. I had a public librarian do this for me a few semesters ago. Let's see if I can bring that up. This is, got it downloaded because they created it in Publisher. They've actually created interactive bookmarks. These interactive bookmarks are really neat. They wanted to put them at the checkout so that kids, when they checked out their books, they were able to have this interactive bookmark to recommend Caldecott books. It can be an honor book or it can be a winner. I don't care which. So you notice this one is Me and Jane. If I look at the back of that book, you'll notice they have a QR bookmark. They have a QR code to lead to different activities to support it. So the front side, they had a book trailer linked with a QR code. And on the back side, they had more information about Jane Goodall's connection. If we look at the one in the middle, I have to go back and forth. Grandpa Green is another Caldecott. You can scan the code to view the book trailer on the front. And then on the back, there's more activities to support this kind of book. So you see these interactive bookmarks are really neat to have and print off. Kids can still scan the QR code and go to a different activity that they can do on their own. Okay, some of them included coloring areas. So it may be you think or could use interactive bookmarks in a better fashion to promote some of these different titles. Now they did Caldecott, but maybe you're doing the Pure Belle Prey Award. or you're doing the Stonewall Award. I think I've already shown you a s'more. I'll also show you a website. This particular website, they chose Newbery winning books, and the Newberries, you notice they don't have as many because these are not picture books. So we're going to balance it out. If you're doing, let's see, do I have that on this page? Yep. You will do at least 10 books if they're picture books and 4 books if they're chapter books, because I'm expecting you to read them, right? And you include your summary and just a few brief sentences in the summary. But in this particular one, she's highlighting, she's told us what is the Newbery Award. She's given us links to get to those different sites. And then as you click on the information at the top of the page, you'll notice she's highlighted 4 of those titles, as I indicated for you guys to do. And then she's also linked out different resources to support them. This is the one that gave an example of how to create your own Tesseract for a makerspace activity. So it kind of, she didn't have to create those ideas, right? But she was able to research them, find them, link them out, and make sure you cite your sources on that. Okay, so just a few examples. If I were to bring up our assignment for that, let's just navigate there. You'll notice when you click on the award-winning books, it gives you a Padlet to put it on. I'll need it in Canvas and on Padlet for sharing out purposes. We give you a link to the Caldecott, to the Newbery, to all of those different organizations. It talks here about how many books to do, 10 if they're picture, 4 if they're chapter. Include your introduction, a brief summary, just a few sentences of what that award is for and who it's honoring. And then I have given you a few examples here at the bottom. So I hope you have, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask me. I'm kind of on the road right now. I'm back and forth, so it may be delayed in responding, but I want to make sure that you have the content you need to feel good about it. I'm hoping you'll find a unique award that you want to honor and help tell others about, because they usually are quality books for those particular content areas. Okay, next, I want to talk briefly about your group assignment 2. So normally when we're meeting in person, this is when I would want to take all of your group assignments that you did last week and share them out and share with the class what they look like. Obviously, we're not going to be able to do that in a recording. So I do want to tell you that your next group assignment will be June 13th, and you will be adding to the project that you worked on last week. So when you're adding to that, let's look. Oh, I think I've got it here. Take your groups. The criteria is the same, but the book list will be different. The book list this time will be focusing on poetry, fairy tales, folk tales, and other story resources. So again, I'm giving you a list that you're welcome to choose from with ebook access so that you can get to them. And we will talk about fairy tales in the next class or two, hopefully in person. But we'll give you some content there. But if not, you have a list you can pull from, unless you have a title that you are familiar with that you would like to show. So this is a good way to personalize your instruction. If you're like, man, I know the new titles that are out because they come across my desk all the time. I'm thinking about you public library folk, but maybe you're not as familiar with the classics. This is a chance for you to familiarize yourself with the classics. If you're the opposite, if you're like, man, I remember these from when I was a kid, but I don't know the new stuff, then look for something with a later copyright date so that you can learn the new types of the new books that are out on this particular genre. Okay. Again, you'll be doing poetry, fairy tales, folk tales, and we'll talk about that a little bit more next time. Remember, when you turn in your group project, number 1, I need you to everybody submit the link. So you need to make sure, let me actually bring this up really quickly. I think this may be helpful to you. If you are creating a site, so I'm going to go up here to my waffle, and you'll notice if I'm logged into my UNCG account, I should be able to get to my sites right from the waffle. Once you're here, need something I have edit access to. I'm going to use we have a website for just our school library folks to support that. When I'm in the edit mode, you're going to see a little person at the top with a plus sign. When you click that person, you can add multiple people and give them editing rights. You see that over here on the right. So I can give all these people editing rights. I can go in and say, I can take them as a published viewer, or I can give them editing rights themselves. So the reason I've asked you to do it in this format is it's also easy to make a copy. When you're in the editing format here, it is published, but I'm in the back door, right? I can go to the top 3 dots. When I click on that, you'll notice it says make a copy. When we're finished with our group project, I'm going to ask everybody to have your own copy of this so that you can edit it and add to it yourself. You may want to go in and add to and put your final passport to multicultural literature in your log. That's totally fine. You may want to link out to your award-winning assignment. Once it's a copy that belongs to just you, you're welcome to add those components and have all of your work in kind of one place. I do need you to turn in 2 pieces. One, everybody turn in their link in Canvas. I think we talked about that last week. The next part is use the text box area to describe the pieces that you wrote about. If you chose to write about 1 book or you chose to write about 3, give me those titles, because I want to give you a grade on the components that you created, not on the whole piece, right? You are only graded on the parts that you contribute. Also list there any issues or challenges that may have taken place, any recommendations you might have for improving this project, or additions that you think we should add to the reading list, right? All of those. But make sure that you put those contributions in the text box area. That's how I'll know that you connected it there. And then also do a quick little reflection. You know, in this group project, was there any insight that you gained, or issues or challenges that you had, right? Give me a little content to know. And I'm just talking 2 or 3 sentences. You've done the work by doing the website itself. So just make sure I get some connection there. Okay, so I've kept you here for quite a while, but I hope you feel confident in the expectations for your next literature immersion assignment on book awards. You feel confident that there are all kinds of book awards out there that you could connect to and that you can move forward with as we're moving into the next stage. How are you going to promote those? How are we going to inform others that they're available, that they may want to read? So I hope you have a wonderful holiday, and I will see you next Monday. So have a great one, and I'll see you then.